the dream team of EXP and the Ultimate Listing Machine. Today what we're going to be talking about is how to work what's called a phone verified lead. So with our system, if you're plugging into our prospecting and automated marketing system, you have the advantage of not having to make a cold call. Now, what do I mean by that? You didn't have to go through and a bunch of disconnected phone numbers. You didn't have to call the neighbor to get a hold of the homeowner. You didn't have to accidentally get a hold of the brother, right? You know usually who the contact is on the home. So a PVL, how we define a PVL, just so we're all on the same page, you have in most instances, you actually know who the homeowner is with their name, you know their name. You have some notes, you should have some notes in there on the majority of them where you know time frame, you know some motivation, you have their email, and you have a recommended time usually to get a hold of them. Now, if you don't have those things, usually it's because of a technical glitch or maybe something that your account executive or what you might better know as an inside sales associate isn't doing it the right way. And so we encourage you to be in contact with your ISA. If when the PVLs come across you don't have that information, the biggest thing is that PVL should be, that phone verified lead should be within 3 to 6 months of selling, with the majority of them under 3 months. So Jamie, has that been your experience so far working the phone verified leads where the majority of them are under 3 months or so of selling?
Under 3 months until they're going to sell?
Until they're going to sell.
Yeah, I mean, depends on how far back I go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we have data in here back to like January, and so probably even before that, but those are the ones I've been calling. So it depends, I think, on who I'm talking to, but yeah, I mean, I can tell you that many of them that I've looked at are already listed. You know what I mean? So they were probably within that 3 month time frame that you're talking about. Does that help?
Yeah, it does.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so there've been a bunch of them like that you know.
Yeah.
3 weeks later, they're listed.
They're listed.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the notes are not the only thing to go off of, right? Because it might not say that in the notes. They may tell the person that they talk to that they're willing to wait a little bit longer, but they might have changed their their time frame. So number one rule of thumb is that whatever a homeowner tells you, cut that time frame in half. So if they tell you 3 months, you want to make sure you get back to them within like a week or within a month and a half. If they tell you a month, you want to try to get back to them in 2 weeks or less, because we find that usually they'll tell you longer than it really is. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that's rule of thumb number one when you're working with a PVL, is that a phone verified lead is whatever the time frame says, or that maybe if you listen to the recording of the call, it's usually it's about half the time frame. And we've seen that with working these leads. We'll call them back. They've told us they're about a month out, and then they've been listed and they got listed with another agent.
Yeah.
So it's really important from a time frame standpoint. The other thing that's really important when we're working PVLs is to figuring out how to get a hold of them quick or quicker. So, and we can talk about this offline a little bit, but I think for us internally, when we get triggered on 5th Street, just figuring out, because Mark only has 2 or 3 hours on the account, figuring out other options on how to make sure that we're working the PVLs, and getting, so when that 5th Street dings, somebody can call it back relatively quickly. So if you're looking at this and you're watching this video, if it's not you, we recommend that you have an agent or two that are synced up to the top producer account and to 5th Street. So that way when you see a PVL come through, that somebody can snag it and call it back right away while it's warm. And what we find too, if it goes about 7 days out before we get a hold of them again, they may not even remember the initial phone call.
Yeah.
And that's another big problem. Can you speak that a little bit?
Yeah. So I don't know what the day number is.
Yeah, specifically, right?
But there's, honestly, if I go back like into early April, like where are we now, first week in May?
Yeah.
I go back to early April, I'm not even acknowledging.
Right.
Because a couple of times when I have, they're like,
what are you talking about?
They don't remember. Like you said, they're probably getting called by all kinds of agents in the meantime, since John or whoever spoke to them, right?
Yeah.
So to your point, yeah, I mean, I think after however many days, I don't know what the number is, but after some period of time, they forget. So, but even in that situation, the value is that you have some information
Yeah.
about what's going on with them,
Right.
regardless of whether we acknowledge the conversation or not. You know what I mean? I think if it's recent, there probably is value in that, but if it's not,
Yeah, because you still should have their
Yeah.
timeframe, their motivation,
Yeah.
know a little bit, give you a little bit of a better angle going
Yep.
into the call.
oh yeah, and the data is, it's like,
Clean.
yeah, it's scrubbed,
Yep.
you know what I mean? Most of the time, the numbers, there are some that I've had that are a little older that the numbers aren't good anymore, but
Yeah.
not many, but
Right.
here and there. But for the most part, the data is scrubbed.
Right.
And it's just a pool of opportunity to call through.
Yeah, but don't you go in though and scrub it even more, or you check it on Realist, you get the tax
I do,
information, so you know about the property, if it was listed, you go back at the expired listing.
Yeah.
So when you're talking to these people, you know all about their house,
Yeah,
and that gives them a hell of an advantage.
Absolutely.
I'm doing that. I'm checking, I try to find out what their property address is. If it listed, if it didn't list, I just do a quick look at what's going on with them.
Yeah,
And then I call them.
that's good.
It just gives me a little more information.
That's good. Yeah. So how our system is set up is we have 5 Street that, shoot the initial email and text message out. And our hope is to get a hold of them right then and there, but we also make sure that we have at least 1 or 2 agents who are spending a couple hours a day, 1 to 2 hours a day, working the phone verified leads. And we found that, again, if we don't get a hold of them in time, they're listing with other agents.
Yep.
So there has to be a sense of urgency, so we recommend that when you're working these leads, that you're in a position where like, if it's not you, you have somebody else following up on these leads every single day. And I think that's another really important strategy to make sure that you're gonna maximize the conversion. Nothing worse than seeing a property that you love, that you wanted,
Yeah.
and then they just listed with another
Somebody
agent. There's nothing worse than that.
The worst is that somebody else sold it. in a
Sold
day.
it, yeah, sold it, right, and then you see it,
Yeah.
then you see it's gone.
Gone,
in 2
it's like,
days.
oh.
I think another important point when it comes to conversion, working the PVLs, is how we open up the conversation when we're actually calling and talking to them. So we just rolled this out, but every new PVL coming down, they will have mentioned the team name at the end of the call. So they should have some recollection. So instead of saying Mark Howell, or like saying the ISA's name, they're actually gonna say Mark Howell or somebody from the dream team of EXP will be calling you.
That's good.
Yeah, so it's gonna help bridge that gap.
Yeah,
So-
because if they're expecting Mark.
Yeah.
But then I call them.
Yeah.
Well, who are you?
That's right.
So that's good. I like
Yeah.
that.
So at the end of, so all the SDSs are doing that now. It might take a little bit to shake the habits out. So we wanna keep talking this through.
Yeah.
But as of Friday, I believe, they started doing that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, they started doing that. So all the new ones should come in.
What do you,
So the ending will sound something like, okay, great, so what I'm gonna do at this point is, I'm gonna actually have Mark Howell, who's one of the regional specialists here, or somebody from the dream team at EXP, give you a call back to see if it makes sense to meet up or whatever.
yeah, that's good. What are your thoughts about when, like, if John does, or whoever the SDS does the PVL, and the person said, again, they've been clear about they don't wanna talk, I mean, because again, they're coming through ding, ding, ding all day long, right? So like, let's say one comes through today.
Yeah.
And he just talked to the person, and they don't wanna talk to anybody for a month. Of course, we cut it in half,
Sure.
right? But like, what are your thoughts on that? You let it go?
Now, does that say PVL on it, or does it say future opportunity on it? We wanna look it up,
Yeah, I have to look at it, but I'm pretty sure all the 5 Street texts, I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
from what my experience is, they give just a little information and it says claim, it's like a peek
Yeah,
to the agent. The agent gets the text, goes, okay, it looks good, I'm gonna take this one.
Mhm.
But it doesn't give everything
Mhm.
until they say, I'll take it.
Mm.
So, but does it say PVL or future? I have to check.
Okay, yeah, why don't you check on that? It should, a PVL should be different where a PVL should be where they've agreed for a follow-up conversation. Where a future opportunity is, I don't wanna talk to anybody right now, but call me back in, a month or whatever. And if it's, and we can work through that if it's not perfect.
Okay.
So we can work through that. So Ron, I know that you had a few things to share with us when it comes to working PVLs, which I want to definitely get to in a minute. I just had one more thing to cover. The opening first 30 seconds is everything with the PVLs. It's making sure that you have something, that you have a solid intro. And Jamie, I'm sure you'd agree with me that when times you didn't have a solid intro,
yeah,
it's been totally different than when you get a good segue in, right? So
yeah, Lynn just texted in a question. She
yes.
goes,
yeah.
She said, however she prefaced it, she doesn't know what a PVL is.
Oh, okay.
I don't either. No, I'm kidding.
Said I feel silly to ask, but what does
No.
PVL mean? Don't feel silly.
Don't feel silly at all. A PVL is what we call a phone verified lead. And that just means that it's not a raw lead. It's been verified by a sales development specialist that it's a homeowner that's willing and open to selling in the next 3 months or so, and they're also willing and open to having a conversation with an agent or accepting a follow-up call. And that's how we define a PVL. There's actually 5 points. I'm trying to remember them all off the top of my head. You have their name, you have their phone number, you have their email, you have their time frame, and you have their motivation.
Sometimes not the address.
Sometimes not the address,
Yeah.
but more frequently than not, you will have the address moving forward.
But you can find
We've
it.
made that upgrade.
Yeah, but you can find it too. Jamie does.
Every lead moving forward should have the address. They should have the address in the lead, so let me know if you don't, okay?
Okay.
So hopefully that helps, Lynn, answer your question.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Good, it was a good question. The next thing is, you gotta have a solid intro. So in the next video that we do, we'll talk more about that, is what to say when you're actually opening up the conversation with that PVL. Rule of thumb, number 1, reference the conversation that was had with the SDS. So it'd be something like this. Hi, this is Isaiah calling from the Dream Team. You actually spoke to John earlier today or yesterday or whatever the time frame is about selling your home. He told me that, and then repeat what it says in the notes. And then I just wanted to call and follow up with you and just ask you a couple questions really quickly, and then go into your questions and start the conversation from there. As rule of thumb, that's the general framework, but we'll dig more into that tomorrow. So Ron, before we end the video, I want to make sure that you get the time that you have. I know you got some awesome stuff for us.
Yeah.
So when it comes to working PVLs, what are some best practices?
All right, well, the first thing is the intro, very important.
Yeah.
And that's something that needs to be worked on.
Yeah.
But the key is to ask some really good qualifying questions that make them think.
Yes.
The first thing someone wants to do is get you off the phone. You want them to think, hey, well, let me talk to this guy a little longer. I mean, and there's 14 questions you could ask. Do you have to ask all 14? Absolutely not. It only takes one sometimes to get that conversation going. But just want to ask Mr. and Mrs. Seller, will prospects be able to find your home easily? Are you sure of that? Do you have or know how to run an effective advertising campaign? Do you have? What marketing plan do you have? What are you using? Things like that. And I won't go over all of them, but in the future we can. We'll do a PowerPoint on it or something. But the nice part about the agent talking to that client is, as they're talking, and if they can dig out some pain and motivation, chances are 99% of the time we have a UVP, unique value proposition, that will handle that problem for them. Our biggest one, our most powerful one, is our seller program. When it comes to, they want to sell it on their own, there is no reason anybody who has any sensibility in the world would not want to work with this agent using that program, all right, that Seller Advantage program. The agent talking to this client, going for that appointment, has to really understand the difference between a discovery meeting and a listing appointment. And they need to push hard for discovery. And it's a very friendly, low-key, informal, I'm here to help. Let me see if there's something I can do, be it help you sell it on your own, And I'll be there for you, and that's again, that unique value proposition.
And I know there's some agents on the line that are used to hard qualifying over the phone.
Oh,
and
not
saying-
good.
and saying, so let's just talk a little bit about
Okay.
that. And we'd ask you guys to try it if you maybe went through, I know Mike Ferry training, they're huge on hard qualifying over the phone before you actually get there in person. And you're, hey, look, if I come out there, you're open to listing your property with me, right? And like that type of qualification, you ask some other questions. The difference is that this is a lead that you haven't talked to yet, and you don't know what cycle they're in. And we found in today's market that if you want to have a chance to get in front of them, positioning it as a discovery meeting is more powerful. It's going to get you through more doors than if you were just hard qualify over the phone.
Well, you could.
And this is based on hundreds of thousands of appointments and hundreds of thousands of calls. I mean, I can go on and on, but that's where the strategy came up.
But, and I don't wanna disagree with someone else's strategy,
Yeah.
but the bottom line is, okay, you say that, you
Yeah.
get there, you don't want the listing.
That's right.
Now, what credibility did you just give your company?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, don't say.
It's a two-way street.
Yeah,
It's a two-way street.
you
That's
gotta
why we
show
position it as discovery.
empathy.
Yeah.
You, and I would bet a lot of money, if I had a lot of money, but I would bet a lot of money that the agents who do go
You
in
do have a
there.
lot of money. What are you talking about? Quit being humble.
Anyway, if they would, the agents that go in there and show empathy, the agents that go in there and explain this is a discovery meeting, it's informal, let me see if I can help you, or, whatever the case may be. Those are the agents that are getting these sellers to list with them.
Yeah.
Not the ones that say, no, if I come over, you're gonna open to list with me, right? Because otherwise, I'm not wasting my time. That's what they're saying, and that's so wrong. And they need, also on the phone, they can talk about their marketing plan. I mean, any for sale by owner, chances are, does not have a campaign in place. They've got 2 places to put it because it's free, and they're not gonna spend a fortune. And not for anything, the technology, they don't have it unless they're an agent, all right? So when you think of that, and then you can also talk about statistics and conditions of the market. And you do that excited, you have that enthusiasm about what you do in the marketplace you're in. Why is that a good thing to talk about? Because if they haven't sold their house yet, they're not in the market. There's a problem there, and possibly they don't understand what they should be doing to get there. And don't be afraid to talk about Zillow and how it works, because a lot of people don't realize it. And like we said this morning, we said, what our folks said today, oh, my listing had 100 views and 3 saves. Great. How many showings did you have? None. Why is that? 100 people saw your property. They're looking for a property like yours. They're searching and nobody made an appointment? Well, why do you think that is? Or did they click on the advertiser who happens to be an agent, and there's usually 3 of them on the right side of your listing? They must not go on Zillow and look at their house and see the agents there. And how does it become free? Someone's paying for that service.
Yep.
It's advertisers who are agents as well.
They're gonna drive them there first before they go.
A buyer is gonna do this. Let's see, I want more information about this property. They save it, they hit the agent's name. The agent doesn't know about this property, it's just an agent, all right? So, I mean, it would be important, but these are things that on the phone, you wanna be able to talk about intelligently, because you need that face-to-face, you need to get into it. The biggest one is that, hit it home hard, you've got these unique value propositions, you in fact know the difference between a discovery meeting, and like you said earlier, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm not gonna come over there with a sign under my arm, I don't even know if I can help you. I need to find out. Let me see your house. And at the very least, we'll make a connection. And if you're still adamant, I may know a colleague in the office who might even have a buyer for this house. I'd be more than happy to pass it along. So with 15 minutes or as much time as you need, I'll be there to answer any question that you have. And that's all you gotta do. And believe me when I tell you, you're gonna get an appointment.
So for today, we just wanted to lay the foundation of some top-line best practices of how to work a PVL. And we spent a lot of time on for sale by owners for our viewers because expireds are a little bit easier to work. And usually a lot of the same psychology transitions over. There are specific objections you will get with an expired that are different, which we're gonna cover those, but we're gonna spend the majority of our time talking about FSBOs, because if you can nail for sale by owners down, that expireds, I'm not gonna say are a cakewalk, but they're a little bit
Yeah.
they become much easier if you master the harder.
Oh, absolutely.
Harder one first. And the nice thing about for sale by owners though is that they usually, if you get really good at them, they have a shorter time frame than sometimes an expired does. So an expired might want to let it sit and let it cool off, and you got to kind of have that nurturing process. Where for sale by owner, if you catch them in stride because you know they're selling, right? And if you just, usually it's only a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks before they're ready to start interviewing an agent. Where sometimes an expired might want to let it off and sit for 3 months, 4 months. And so there are disadvantages to expireds too. That's why I like for sale by owners, because you know they're selling now. So
They're in it.
they're in it.
And the expired's like, now what?
Yeah.
Now what do we do? Now
Right.
what? Expired, now what?
Yeah.
You know, there's a big difference in attitude.
Yep. So we hope you guys found this helpful as far as laying the foundation of working PVLs. And we actually have about 5 to 7 other videos that we're going to be doing, taking a deeper dive into the language and what to say. We'll actually be doing some role play and also the objections, and making sure that appointment is landing same day, next day if possible. So we'll see you in the next video.